Hey guys, my name is April from Unsolicited Plant Talks and welcome back to our channel. Today, I wanted to do another highlight or another show and tell, and we are going to focus on Hoya polyneura right next to me right here. If you're not familiar, this is also known as Hoya fishtail, just because of how beautiful and how these leaves lay like a fishtail, like a mermaid. I think some people also call them Hoya mermaid tail. So just know those are generic names, and the actual name for this specific species is Hoya polyneura. If you don't have one yet, just engorge how beautiful this looks, and it's definitely a must-have if you collect Hoyas. And if you already have one, I just wanted to let you know I'm very sorry. You are probably wondering, why does your polyneura look like that? There's actually a really good reason, and this is why I wanted to do a show and tell of this specific plant. I can't really tell you if this is dying or not. I have a feeling that it is. If you're wondering why I think it's dying, this particular species is actually native to Himalayas. And in the Himalayas, in the Himalayan mountains, if you look it up, their average temperature is about 62 degrees, and during winter, they actually go below freezing point. I had to put that to test. If you guys are following me on Instagram, you may have seen me post a story about this during our Game of Thrones like winter here in California. We just had the longest winter this past winter, and I thought, you know what, let's put it to test. How well is this polyneura going to do under situations where it's snowing, it's very cold consistently, and just taking care of it as usual. So I left this outside. I think during this year we had temperatures ranging from 60 to 28, maybe to 25 degree Fahrenheit. And I said, you know what, go big or go home, because I'm already in it and there's no going back. I just left it outside. The reason why I also didn't want to bring it in was because I had already forgotten to leave it outside. So it wasn't really that I was planning. I would like to take credit for it. It wasn't really that I was planning on leaving it outside and actually doing the experiment. I just got caught up in the varying temperatures here in California this year, and I wasn't able to predict how cold or how hot it is going to be. Literally, we would have really hot days, and then the next day it was snowing. Hey, you know what? She was outside, and I said, let's go ahead and do that experiment. So I posted it on Instagram and I watered it. Normally, obviously, if it was raining that day, I wouldn't water it. If it was too hot, maybe I'd water it. So I still gauged on how much I would water this plant, especially because I left it in a cocoa husk, cocoa core mix. And so I needed to make sure that at least I'm giving it still the care that it would normally get if it were living in its natural habitat. So I left it for a good while, and it started snowing, and boy oh boy, it was so happy. It was snowing, it was raining, it was cold. We had a lot of snow in our area during this past winter, and we don't normally get snow, so it was pretty cold. It was crazy this last winter. It was thriving. I'm talking about lush, deep green, thick vines, thick leaves, and it was just so beautiful. I actually had 3 separate Hoyas that I tested, and just like this one, the other 2, it wasn't really that I was planning on doing an experiment with those 2. It just happened that it was outside, and yeah, April forgot, and you're gonna be part of the experiment now. So those 2, Hoya pendiflebia and Hoya surrigawensis, I believe, didn't do very well. As soon as it started getting down to maybe 55, maybe even like high 50s, they were just like, hey, I'm not happy, please help me. And you know what I did? I didn't help them. So they went bye-bye. They're in the Hoya heaven now. So this is the only one that really lasted. I was so happy because our weather here is not really something that you would want to grow Hoya, specifically in my area, not California, because I know a lot of my friends who live by the coast, they do have really good breeze that are coming from the ocean. So they have this really nice temperature. They don't have really varying temperatures compared to what I have here, which is really hot. I wouldn't say it's as hot as down there because we're in a higher elevation, but we still get really hot and really dry, but also we get snow in winter. And so It's not really ideal for me to grow Hoyas outside, at least specific Hoyas outside, because I know that I'm just gonna kill them, especially I forget to bring things inside. I was so happy. This polyneura is thriving and it's giving, and I can leave her outside all year long. Wrong, because now that we're in summer season, it is growing under a canopy of a really beautiful tree right here in front of me. It was getting watered regularly. It was getting the same care that I would normally give all of my plants out here that are thriving. And it's just not very happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I forgetting to water it? Because it is so wrinkly. I can fold the leaves. I don't even have to touch it. You can see the wrinkles. And I can fold the leaves and it won't snap because it's just that paper thin. So I thought, oh my gosh, does it have root rot or did it have dry rot? And then I watered it more and then it rotted. No, the roots looked perfectly fine. So I figured it probably doesn't like the temperature. And that's the only thing that I could think of. And it would make sense because in the Himalayas, like I said, their average temperature is about 60°F and their lowest is below freezing point. And right now we're hovering between 95 and 110 and it is really hot. So I think this plant is in shock. I think this plant is not only that it's not happy, but I think this may be dying. However, though, it is still growing. It's growing new leaves, it's grown peduncle. I don't know if it's because it started cooling down again. We're gonna go back up to 110. So April, don't keep your hopes up. But it is growing. Let me see, I've got new growth, I got new leaves, they look happy. So I am holding out hope for this baby. Hoya polyneura, we're gonna go into care. It is a very easy one to propagate. Not only that it's very easy to propagate, it does grow pretty fast with the ideal conditions. So if you are growing it inside the house, or if you're growing it with temperatures that are pretty cold, it's going to love you and it's going to grow so much. It's gonna grow fast too. That's one of the reasons why I thought this was a really good one to do a show and tell. It's still looking really pretty. I do wonder if this is going to continue thriving until winter. Is it going to be able to keep going? I don't know. It's look at this. I got yellow leaf right here. It's not really coming off, so I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna leave it as is because I feel like if I disturb it, then it would defeat the purpose of me trying to do this experiment with it. So we're just gonna wait out. I'm probably gonna do another video during winter and show you guys how it's been growing, if it's gonna grow or if it's even gonna make it there. If not, we're just gonna hold a funeral for this one because it definitely deserves a fancy one. So to summarize with that, the care is very easy. Like I said, it's very easy to propagate. You just have to make sure the normal propagation tips that I've given before. What you would want to provide it when you're propagating it is a very well aerated mix. You can use whatever mix you want. I personally use cocoa husk, cocoa core mix, and as long as it's very well aerated, but also staying moist at all times. Now, because this is a thinner leaf Hoya, what I usually tell you guys is that whenever I propagate, I water it and I treat it just like any other Hoyas that I have. It's different for thin leaf Hoyas, especially for polyneura, because they can only hold so much water in their leaves because they're thin, so the reservoir is not as big as the other Hoyas or the other thick leaf Hoyas. And because of that, you're gonna have to assist it to make sure that it's getting a little bit more moisture than normal so that it can stay alive until it roots enough to support itself. Now, the upside about it is that it roots very fast and very easy. So you might have to put a little bit of extra effort into making sure that it is staying moist consistently, but at the same time, you probably wouldn't even have to do that as long because in no time you will have a well-rooted polyneura. Now, when it comes to your permanent medium for it, I usually keep it in our regular mix. However, I do add a little bit more core. This guy drinks a lot. So if you just use a cocoa husk, which I have done before, it will continue to thrive, but you're gonna have to make sure that you water it more often because it will drink the water. Now, with that being said, it still doesn't like being too wet for too long. So Don't just be sticking it in soil because it's not going to be happy, but just make sure to get or to use a medium that will hold a little bit more moisture a little longer so that it gives it time to drink on its own time, and you are not going to have a problem with this baby. Now, to flower it, it typically flowers during, I would say, fall. At least that's in my experience growing this for years. You have to have a shorter warm daytime to longer cold nighttime. That's when they typically would produce flowers. Now, it will produce peduncles during warm season. Like right now, I actually am producing peduncles on this dying plant. That could also be a death peduncle. If you don't know what that is when Hoyas are producing peduncles and trying to flower, and you're thinking, oh, it's very happy, but there's also a possibility that the reason why it's producing that is because it is dying, and it is the plant's last resort to hopefully get pollinated so that its line of species can continue and not go extinct. Maybe I can go into details with that one later on when it comes to flowering and how I force my plants to flower. But yeah, so this one is producing peduncles. It could be a death peduncle, but also I've seen it on my healthy polyneuras as well. Even though when it's hot, it starts producing peduncle, but it would not produce flowers for me. It would just produce maybe buds here and there, but they would fall off. And so I don't assume that they're gonna flower for me during warmer months of the year, but comes fall is when they typically flower, and the flowers are amazing. They are so cute. I love the color schemes. It is, like I said, this plant is just amazing. Another care tip that I would like to talk about is if you are rooting or growing Hoya polyneura, there is a possibility that you are seeing a lot of yellow leaves. The tips are yellowing or rotting. There's two possibilities with that. Number one, it could be just because it's stress, it's acclimating. When I root polyneuras, I don't expect to keep the existing leaves. I'm just using them as a reservoir for nutrition until they're ready to root, or they're ready to be transplanted, or they're ready to grow into their own beautiful baskets. And so I wouldn't worry about them, just continue propagating them and caring for them how you would normally care for them. That's one of the possible reasons why it's doing that. Next reason is it could be very humid where it's at. So what's happening is it is collecting water on the tip of the leaves, and they're not drying fast enough, and because of that, it is rotting. So that's another reason. And the last reason is it's a little too hot for them to thrive. So that's also another way to gauge, okay, is this temperature good for it or not? With that being said, let's go to fertilizing. I don't really put extra effort in fertilizing this Hoya. I do fertilize it just like any other Hoyas that I have in the greenhouses. It has yet to throw a tantrum for me. Yeah, I guess I could just say that is my experience. I don't know how your experience has been. I haven't really looked into it, but like I said, I don't do anything special. I have slow release fertilizer that are in the medium itself, but I also fertilize them once a week via foliage fertilizing. So yeah, you do with whatever you want with that information. All right, so we're talking about that polyneura, very beautiful plant. Now, did you know that there are varieties of polyneura? And let's go from the common ones to the rare ones. First one is this is the regular green variety, by the way. So it may come with some splash, but this is typically just normal green leaf variety. So this is the first example that I have. Now, do not judge this one. This is a rehab, and like I said, our polyneuras are not very happy right now in the greenhouses because they were hanging up top where it's closer to the ceiling, and we forgot to take them down before the summer got really bad. Some of them are yellowing, like I said, but it's a really good example. Here are some good examples of Hoya polyneura leaves with splash. You see those leaves with that hint of splash coming from the outer part of the leaves. Those are normal for this specific variety. Like I said, even the regular ones sometimes can develop these splashes on the leaves, and they can be even more splashy than that. Do you see how it's almost covering the whole leaf? This one's a really good example. How you see it's almost covering the whole leaf. However, the splash is still coming from the outside in. Now, this is just my observations. Take it with a grain of salt because I am going to dabble into a little bit of a controversy when it comes to this plant, when it comes to the splashes of this plant and how people are naming their varieties. So here's another example. As you can see right here, the splash is coming out from the outside, or coming from the outside to inside right there. Really good example, right? These are also really pretty. And you know what? This is pretty stable. When you get like a really good clone, this is actually pretty stable. Most of your leaves are going to have splash. It may not be splashy. You may have some leaves that are not as splashy. So look at this. This is a really good splash right there. And this vine just continues to have really good splash. You might get some leaves that are not as splashy, but they don't revert. They don't completely revert. You might get green leaves and then the next set of leaves are going to be splashy again. Now, I don't know how stable they are. They seem pretty stable to me, but I don't know what causes them to be stable or what causes them to not have splash on some leaves. Compared to the other splash varieties of Hoyas that I grow, this one, I don't really do anything special. Whether I stick it under a dim environment or a bright environment, the splash typically come out stable. Now, the difference is when you grow it in bright light, obviously your leaves are gonna be a little bit sun bleached, so it's gonna be a little bit light green. And I personally don't like that look, so I don't grow this in direct light. So if you wanted to grow one of these, I would recommend growing them in a shaded environment. So this is splash, like I said, coming from outside inwards. It is stable, but it is not fully stable. As you can see right here, yeah, really good amount of splash right there. Not a lot over here. See right here, oh my gosh, she's yellowing. So some splash on the outer side right there. This one almost doesn't have any right there. And then the new leaves are showing some splash again. Oh my gosh, camera. The next variety that I wanted to show you guys is what a lot of people call broget. It's Danish, it's a Danish word, but a lot of people in the community that are saying that it shouldn't be used. I did so much research on where that term came from because it is Danish for variegation, or I guess like varying colors. And it's not necessarily variegated, it just is splashy. So I think it's only fair to call it silver because I think the broget is not really a cultivar name anyway. It goes in a parentheses, meaning it's just a description. So calling it silver would be more appropriate. So here, look how cute these guys are. So here are polyneura silver. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but the mottling or the silvery specks are pretty much all over the place. They are not just coming from the outside, they are all over the place and they're pretty even throughout. So here's a new set of leaves, so you can tell right there. And actually when it gets a bit cold, this one actually throws almost pure silver leaves. You probably can't tell so much on this video and on this lighting, but this is pure silver. You see how right there, that is pure silver. That is almost pure silver. And look, it came from a mottled leaf like this, okay? It's very, I don't know if you guys see what I'm talking about. The splash is not just coming from the outside, it's pretty even throughout. And that is what distinguishes a silver form of polyneura to a splash form. And it's very important, in my opinion, my personal opinion, to label them properly because this one is very stable. I'm talking about you're gonna have some silver leaves with this one. With splash, it's not as stable as this one. Like I said, it still is stable. You still get a lot of splash that are coming from the outer part of the leaves inwards, but you will also have leaves that are not splashy at all. This one, this is probably the least splashy you're gonna get from this one. And with the proper lighting, with the proper care, these leaves are going to be almost, you're not gonna see the green, it's gonna be silver. I wish I have a better example, but that's the difference. When you buy them or when you're trying to collect these varieties, make sure that you look for those signs, and it's up to you. They're all the same. They're all beautiful. This is all my opinion, okay? It doesn't matter whether you get the splash or the silver form, okay, if you're just trying to get a polyneura. Now, if you're paying a lot more for a polyneura that has a description of being silver, but you can tell that those characters of the silver speckling aligns with splash variety, then I think that's where the problem comes in. But if you just like the look, there's no specific price point for these plants. It's what are you willing to pay for and what are you willing to spend on these plants, in my opinion. But it's very good to be educated about what you're buying. I think being educated about the different varieties of polyneura is really good, but that doesn't mean that I am telling you to buy one over the other. I'm just letting you know that these are the differences, and it's up to you whether you wanted to get all of them, just one, or whatever. In the beginning, when this first got introduced in the collection community, it was pretty pricey. And if you have never seen anything like this and you are collecting Hoyas, as you can tell, this is not your typical Hoya leaves. Everybody was like, wow, mind blown. That is really pretty. I need that in my collection. And honestly, I wanted it in my collection too, but I didn't get it until later on when the price dropped, because everything's gonna drop anyways. And I wasn't really that gung-ho being the first one to get it. And because it grows really fast, it was distributed pretty much to a lot of people for a good amount of price, and it was really cool. I really do think that every single person who tries to collect Hoyas should own this, because it is just really that pretty. But then again, like I said in my past videos, you might find it really ugly, but to me, look, it's freaking gorgeous. You think that's it? You're wrong, because another variety came out, and it is a Hoya polyneura outer variegated. Yes, you heard it right. If you haven't heard it before, there is an outer variegated one where the white is on the outside. Here's the outer variegated variety. It still grows like a fishtail. As you can see right there, you got a node, you got two leaves that are just so pretty. They hang so beautifully like that. You can have a varying amount of variegation on the outside like this. Sometimes you will find them with very thin variegation like that, but they're all about the same. It's so freaking beautiful. They're both beautiful, but if you want a little bit of pop, it's right there. Now, because this plant doesn't sun stress, like I said, it only turns lime green. I also like growing this in low light. I know that there are some plants, especially the ones that sun stress, when you grow them in bright light, the edges or the variegated part of the Hoyas actually turn pink or red. This one does not. So don't be exposing this to bright light hoping that it would turn pink, because it won't. And it's probably not going to be very happy. And because your plant is not happy, you're not going to be very happy. So there is your warning right there. The care for this one is exactly the same. It roots the same, it grows the same, the care, everything is the same. If you've been growing a regular one already and you wanted to invest into this variety, you're not gonna have a hard time, because you wouldn't have to change anything with the care, and it's gonna thrive like no other. So this one is really good to have in your collection. However, this is still pricey compared to the regular ones, so I don't know if you wanted to wait a little bit, but they're not overly pricey, but the price is still obviously a little bit up there compared to the regular variety. This is a very well sought after plant, and I can see why. Can you? So if you like this variety, but it just doesn't quite hit the spot, okay, there's another one. And the other one that I'm about to show you is very new in the market. It's very pricey, very pricey. So if you're willing to pay for it, it's in the market. You just have to find the right people and the right avenues. If you don't really have to get it, I would recommend waiting, because it grows just like any other polyneras that I have showed you. it roots well, it grows fast, and it's carefree. So if you are willing to wait a little longer, that is my recommendation because of the price point. However, nobody's stopping you. So if you wanted to find that one now, you go girl, you go boy, okay? It's so pretty. So let me show you the newest addition to the polyneura family. Okay, I feel like this Hoya has it all. I wish it sun stresses, that would be so beautiful. But you got regular green if you don't like anything on the leaves, any crazy specks or anything like that. You got regular green right here. You have splash, you have silver, you have outer variegated. What are you missing? That's right, inner variegated. Introducing Hoya polyneura inner variegated. I'm just gonna let you soak that in for a bit. Oh my gosh, really beautiful polyneura. I don't have much to say about it except, oh my goodness, extremely beautiful. I don't know what else polyneura can come up with, but this hits the point. Like I said, I think the only thing that I could ask for, if I could, is that hopefully they come up or polyneura turns into a sun-stressing polyneura, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen. And beggars can't be choosers. So this is the latest addition to the polyneura varieties that are in circulation, that are in cultivation at the moment. Like I said, this one grows and requires the same exact care as everything else does. It grows really fast. I grew this from a single node cutting, and how long has it been? I don't think it's been that long, and it's grown phenomenally for me. It has grown so fast for me, and I could only imagine, and it's been hot. I actually started growing this in a very hot greenhouse, and I could only imagine if it is a little bit cooler, I wonder how big this plant would have been by now. So there's that. I haven't had the guts to cut it just yet, but oh my goodness. So if you have the funds, nobody's stopping you. Go find yourself one of these. If you're wondering if I have this yet, as of right now, as of this video, I do not. And the reason being is because I wanted to grow it a little bit bigger first before I can chop. And like I said, I can't really get myself to cut it, so it hasn't been cut yet. But once that happens, then I'm just gonna try to multiply it as much as I can before I release it. So when I release it, you don't have to worry about somebody else buying it right before you because I only had 2 available. So that is it for Hoya polyneura show and tell. I really love this variety. I hope you learned something, and I hope I was able to persuade you to get yourself one because it is worth it. And if you're interested, we're gonna have this on our website. It always sells out right away, but we have some growing. And yeah, if you are patient enough, I will make sure you get a beautiful one. And if you learned anything from this video, please comment down below. I really enjoyed making this video. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and family. Bye-bye.